cop is holding a phone, and he's the one who's talking. He's the one who's talking in Robo Vader voice. And he tells him, the reason I'm never going to see my wife and kids again is because you killed them. At this point, Purvey points the gun directly at his chest and pulls the trigger. But it's a fake. The barrel of the gun, it's a really clever mock-up. But when he pulls the trigger, a whole bunch of spikes come out of the hand grip and stab him with the poison of the fugu fish. It's a kind of puffer fish where the poison sends a drug through your system that paralyzes your muscles. You can't move. You can still breathe and everything, but you have no voluntary reaction. You can't move. You can't turn your head. You can't do anything. So then Clyde Shelton takes Purvey into a body shop that's right next to where they stopped by, straps him down to a table, and shoots him full of adrenaline so he won't pass out. And I admit, at this part, I got kind of squeamish, and this is one of the parts I put my hand over my face. It's really, really, really bad. He straps him down, pulls out a box cutter, and says, "This is going to be for your balls." And then grabs a medical scalpel and says, "Oh, and this in case you decide to try and close your eyes." And at that point, he goes and gets a mirror, a full-length mirror that he suspended from the ceiling, and raises it into a position so Purvey can watch himself being cut up. I mean, we're just talking really, really sick here. And right before he's about to start, he goes and gets a welder's mask, puts it on, puts it down over his face, because he has a video camera set up, and he's going to record this entire thing. It just gets, and this is the point where I cover my face, because he takes an industrial cutting saw and saws off the guy's leg. And I could hear it, but I covered my face because it was I did not want to see that. And from there, we jump to the lawyer character Jamie Foxx and the cops who are trying to find out where Purvey is. And at this point is where we find out why the lawyer had to make the deal, because he's saying the cops spoiled the evidence. So they had no evidence other than witnesses, and because Clyde Shelton passed out, his testimony was considered unreliable at best. So they keep looking for Purvey, and they get an anonymous tip saying to come check out this warehouse. And they check out the warehouse, they get there, and Purvey is completely sliced up. His head is cut off, his arms are cut off at the shoulders, and his legs are cut off either right above or right below knees. I can't remember. And his head is sitting on a steel gurney a few feet away, and the cop mentions that his eyelids have been cut off. It's just a horrific scene, just really, really brutally bad. So they do a little research and find out that, hey, remember that father we screwed over? Yeah, he owns this place. He owns this property. So they check out all the properties he owns and find out he's staying at a farmhouse out in the country. So out there, Clyde is waiting for them. And when they get there, he takes all his clothes off. So when they come in to arrest him, he is buck naked. Oh, the only thing you see, though, is his backside. And when they go to take him out, they put some jeans on him, so you don't see anything like Silence of the Lambs or anything. Excuse me. And at this point is where things start to pick up. They take Clyde to the local prison, and Clyde. No, one thing you need to understand: the Clyde Shelton character is super smart. We're talking like the Riddler from the Batman comics, smart. So they have no evidence, they have no nothing, and they need a confession from him. But the first thing that happens is that the lawyer, Jamie Foxx, walks in and turns off the camera watching them. And he walks up to Clyde Shelton and whispers in his ear, "Hey man, you know Dorky and Purvey? They got what they deserved, man. No one's going to shed a tear with those guys dying the way they did." And then he goes over and turns the camera back on. And so he's talking to Clyde and says, "We need a confession." And it's at this point where Clyde chooses his words very, very, very carefully, and it's like lawyer double talk. I thought about doing this, and I planned on doing that, and this and that, but he never actually says directly, I did it. And so at that point, Clyde tells him, you know what? I want a bed. Because the bed here in prison sucks. And at first, Jamie Foxx's character's like, screw this guy, I ain't going to deal with that. So they leave. We switch to another scene where there's a guy with a delivery package walking up to the Fox character's home. His wife and kid are there. And remember how they ordered a DVD of her cello recital? She opens it up, puts it in the DVD player, pushes play. It's not the cello recital. It's the recording of Clyde slicing and dicing Purvi. And she freaks out. And at that point, we go back to Jamie Foxx getting a call from his wife, and she is freaking out too. And she wants him to come home because their daughter just saw some guy getting sliced to pieces. And Jamie Foxx is like, no, I need to stay here. I need to stay here. And we continue to see how much his career is more important to him than his own family. Where his daughter just saw some guy getting sliced up, and he's more concerned about doing his job. So he walks back into the interrogation, and he says, congratulations. My daughter saw that recording of you slicing that guy up. And so at that point, they finally just decide to give him the bed. And so they give him a really nice bed and everything. Then we move on to the arraignment. Now here's the thing. When they were investigating Clyde Shelton's farmhouse, he had an entire shelf full of law books. So he knows all about the law. And so when they go into the arraignment, Jamie Foxx, the lawyer, starts spinning all this stuff, saying, this and this and that and that and this and all this and stuff and everything. And at this point, the judge turns to Clyde and says, you have declined counsel and decided to represent yourself. Like, yes, that's true. So Clyde starts spinning all this stuff too, and saying they've got no evidence, they've got no visual record of him, they got all this stuff and everything, and they don't have anything. And he even quotes a couple of precedents that support that they have to let him go. And the judge starts to agree with him. At that point, the judge is kind of like, well, yeah, I get it. And the lawyer character is about ready to jump back in when Clyde's like, are you bleeping stupid, Judge? I just killed 2 guys. You're going to let me go out in the street? Man, you must be the stupidest bleep, bleep, bleep I've ever seen in my life. And of course, the judge realizes she's being mocked, spazzes out, and says, no bail for you. And so they take him back to the prison. It's at this point where Clyde says, I want to deal again. That's another one of the themes throughout the entire movie is that I got this, you want this, let's deal. And he says to him, you know what I got? I got Dorky and Purvi's lawyer. And if you want to save his life, you're going to have to bring me lunch from this restaurant I want by 1 p.m. tomorrow. And at this point, they believe him because they know he's crazy. So they go and get him the food. But the warden doesn't want to play that way. So the warden slows it down and slows it down and slows it down. Until eventually they get there, but they end up getting there late. And when they finally deliver the meal to him, he asks, okay, what time is it? The warden says, 1 o'clock. And the Fox character says, it's 1:08. And then Clyde says, okay, well, hey, you kept your end of the deal, I'll keep mine. So he gives them latitudinal and longitudinal coordinates in hours, minutes, and seconds, right down to the second of where the lawyer is. And at this point, they run out there to try and save him. Now, Clyde's cellmate is getting kind of pissed here because he's already gotten to bed, and now he's gotten some really, really good food, and Clyde asks him, you want some of this? He's like, if I don't, I'm going to beat the snot out of you. Well, come sit down, man. Help yourself. Yeah, get what you want, man. So they run out. The Fox character and the district attorney run out to try and rescue the lawyer. They get out to the coordinates they gave him, that he gave them, and there's a briefcase sitting on top of a pile of dirt.